The Resident Evil series is one of my favorite video game series, but it wasn't always like that. When the original games were first released on the PS1, I never really had much interest in them, and my only experience playing them was demo discs for the first and third game. Honestly, I was a lot more into Dino Crisis back then. Check out my review on that first game, by the way. Fast forward a few years, I had a GameCube, but not much to play on it outside of Mario Sunshine and WWE Day of Reckoning. After hearing all the hype about it online, I bit the bullet and bought Resident Evil 4, and man was I glad that I did.
Name's Leon. Came here looking for this girl. Who are these people?
Sin freeze! Vayan por detrás.
What are we gonna do, Leon?
From the characters, to the gameplay, and the action movie plot of the game, just everything about it was so damn fun. So with Resident Evil Village having just been released, and a remake for Resident Evil 4 apparently in development, I thought now was as good a time as ever to revisit the game that got me into the whole series. Now, unlike my previous videos where I discussed some small tidbits about the game's release and development, discussing its genre and gameplay, I'll be diving right in, playing the game and critiquing what it does well and what doesn't work anymore, wrapping up my thoughts on it towards the end. For this video, I'll be playing the PC version of Resident Evil 4, as it's the easiest for me to record, though I did have to turn on VSync in the NVIDIA control panel as I was getting some annoying screen tear at first. I'm also going to play using a controller since it's what comes easiest for me, and because the mouse aiming is just really slow for some reason in this port.
Resident Evil 4.
1998. I'll never forget it. It was the year when those grisly murders occurred in the Arklay Mountains. Soon after, the news was out to the whole world, revealing that it was the fault of a secret viral experiment conducted by the international pharmaceutical enterprise, Umbrella.
The game starts off with Leon Kennedy, one of the playable characters from the second game, giving us a narration to catch us up on the story of Resident Evil so far. The incident at the Spencer Mansion in the first game, the viral outbreak in Raccoon City in 2, and its ultimate destruction in 3. I think this was a smart move by Capcom, a quick way to recap the series for newbies so they don't feel like they're lost diving into the series with this game. I also think it's funny that Umbrella, the evil pharmaceutical company behind everything, wasn't taken out in some crazy final battle, but the US government freezing their assets and business, bankrupting them instead. This game is set 6 years after the events of Raccoon City, and we open with Leon sitting in the back of a police car being driven through the Spanish countryside. He's now part of the Secret Service, and with the help of some Spanish police officers, is on a mission to rescue the president's daughter. The plot is straight out of an 80s action movie, and logically speaking, if the president's daughter were missing, you'd think it'd be a massive international incident. Hell, one of the cops even questions the logic of sending in Leon alone. To the game's credit, it does end up explaining this somewhat. Soon they pull up to the outskirts of a village. The cops stay behind while Leon leaves to investigate on his own. Receiving a call on his weird video walkie-talkie thing, it's his mission control, Ingrid Hunnigan, who briefs him on his mission and tells him to read Ashley's file to get more information on the situation. As we already know, she was abducted by some unknown group, but according to US intelligence, it's very likely one of their own kidnapped her, the whole incident being kept on the hush-hush outside of a few people. Since they don't know who the traitor is, they can't launch a full-blown rescue operation, using the limited info they've gathered to send Leon instead. Fair enough. Explains why SEAL Team 6 isn't being dropped into Spain to save Ashley. After that info dump, I finally get control of Leon, and oof, he feels very awkward to control. Despite the game ditching the fixed camera angles of the original games for a behind-the-shoulder third-person view, Leon still moves via tank controls. He feels very slow in comparison to the updated remakes of 2 and 3, and admittedly it took a while to get used to it. The camera is also very awkward as unless I'm aiming with my gun or knife, it will always snap back to Leon, making it a bit annoying to look around at my surroundings. After fumbling with the controls for a bit, I enter a nearby home without the owner's permission. I find said owner by the fireplace, asking him if he's seen someone resembling Ashley. Sounding justifiably annoyed with this unknown gringo barging into his house, he tells Leon to beat it before grabbing an axe to defend himself. The old man tries to intimidate and remove this intruder from his home, but Leon instead guns the poor guy down. Before he has time to contemplate murdering a man for defending his home, a commotion outside draws Leon's attention, a truck slamming into the police car outside. He's soon surrounded by the poor man's neighbors, the group of men there to exact mob justice on Leon for his excessive use of force. Heading to the second floor, he hops out the window and proceeds to send the group of men to visit their friend in the afterlife. Now's a good time to discuss the combat in the game. Since you don't have iron sights to look down when aiming, almost all of the weapons make use of a laser sight instead. Targeting certain areas like the head or knees can temporarily stun them, opening them up for a melee attack. Not only that, but going deeper into the game, certain enemies will throw things like sickles or dynamite at you, which you can prevent by shooting them in the hand. And in the case of the dynamite, blow them up with it instead. Heading to the bridge and checking on our compadres, things look grim for Officers 1 and 2. Proceeding down the path towards the village, I hear some whimpering and find a poor doggo stuck in a bear trap. Despite being a cruel monster who guns down innocent civilians, I can't let an animal like that suffer, and opt to set him free. Goodbye, my friend. Perhaps we shall cross paths again one day. After meeting more of the locals, I find myself at the entrance to the village, and spot my old buddy, Officer Number 1. And well, yikes. Was not a pleasant way to go. Time to avenge you, amigo. Unfortunately, there's no stealthy approach, so I just go in guns a-blazing. Not the best idea, as I'm soon surrounded on all sides by the villagers. Barricading myself inside a home, I grab a handy-dandy shotgun off the wall, and heroically leap out of a window to gun these villagers down. Along with a chainsaw-wielding maniac. After killing what almost feels like the entire village, church bells start ringing, the villagers stopping their attack and disappearing through a locked entrance.
Lord Sattler.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
I'll be honest, I don't know if I was supposed to wait out an invisible clock by running from them or gun down a specific amount of them, but man, I felt like I wasted way too much ammo. Thankfully, there's a ton in this game, which for old school Resident Evil fans is a huge critique, and why it really isn't considered survival horror by them. When in old games every bullet counted and there was a limited supply to find, here you can find it just about everywhere, the game generously having enemies drop more if you're running low. While I admit it removes a huge amount of the difficulty and planning of the old games, I think it was a necessary change in order for the games to appeal to a larger audience. Also, considering you're taking on way more enemies in this game than probably all the previous games combined, there was no way you'd survive with limited ammo. Ditto for the limited inventory space. Before, you had a handful of items you could hold at one time. Now it's a case where you have to manually arrange and fit your items together like Tetris, along with upgrades for your case you can buy later on for extra space. After looting the village and killing their livestock and petty revenge, Leon leaves the village and finds a note from the village chief warning the others about him and the possibility that an unknown third party is also lurking in the shadows. Ooh, foreshadowing. Moving on, the rookie Secret Service agent slaughters a family working on their farm and runs into our doggo friend again. Hey there, buddy. What's that? Little Timmy's fallen down a well? Lead me to him, boy. Leaving the farm, we get a taste of everyone's least favorite thing about Resident Evil 4, a QuickTime event, with Leon running away from a large boulder like he's Indiana Jones. Honestly, I don't hate them in this game, except for one part I'll get into later, as they're spaced out far enough, give you a decent reaction window, and are usually only done for mundane things. They're nowhere as overused as say as something like Resident Evil 6. God, that whole game feels like a QTE. This next area is brief, but good God is it annoying. You have several villagers throwing dynamite, some of them obscured by trees and houses. Bear traps which can be hard to spot if you're not directly looking at them, and booby-trapped entrances that can blow you to pieces if you don't set them off first. After taking more damage than I'm willing to admit, I enter the large house and see some rattling in a large wardrobe. Ready to gun down some poor fellow hiding from my slaughter? Instead, it's some tied up guy, looking confused and urging us not to shoot. Resisting the urge to kill him, I decide to free him instead and get some answers.
Little rough, don't you think? You're not like them?
No. You?
Okay, I have only one very important question. You got a smoke?
Got gum.
Unfortunately, I don't get to ask him much before the villagers show up,
Perfect.
along with their chief, or as my new friend puts it,
The big cheese.
Leon tries his trusty roundhouse kick on him, but doesn't dent him, earning himself a quick ass whooping before it fades to black and the chapter ends. While unconscious, some creepy old guy in a robe monologues at Leon before juicing him up with some weird egg. Snapping back to reality, oops, there goes gravity, Leon finds himself tied up next to the wardrobe guy.
Hey, wake up.
Ay. Crawl out of one hole and into another.
His name is Luis Sera, a supposed ex-cop from Madrid who the villagers have captured for some reason. Leon interrogates him a bit, and he reveals that he knows who Ashley is after seeing her photo, saying she's being kept alive in the church. The two bro out for a bit before some random bloody villager with an axe shows up to kill them. This scene always confused me since it's obvious the big bad has bigger plans for Leon, so who sent this random flunky to kill him? Could just be he didn't fill in his entire group on the plan, and looking at this guy, I get the impression he's supposed to be the villager Leon killed at the beginning? Maybe? Anyway, Leon QTEs out of the way and kills the guy, Luis taking the chance to run off. Thanks a lot, amigo. After checking in with Hunnigan, Leon leaves the area where he's being held captive and meets a strange man in an overcoat.
Over here. Got something that might interest you. Got a selection of good things on sale, stranger.
This is the merchant. He serves as a shop for the game, selling new weapons, upgrades, attachments, and healing items. He also buys items off of Leon, specifically rare jewels and jewelry that you can find when exploring or shooting down sparkling items. After stocking up and buying a rifle, it's time to make my move. Or I would, but this absolutely annoying glitch starts to happen with the camera every time I kick an enemy, swinging back wildly before centering on Leon again. Not sure I can keep playing this way without throwing up. I reset and change up my settings to get it working right. Unfortunately, I didn't realize I forgot to turn on OBS again, so I had to borrow some footage to cover this next part. After making his way out of the ravine, and then to some warehouse with more bear traps, Leon makes it to the large house guarded by the world's easiest puzzle. Inside, he reunites with
The big cheese.
Bitores Mendez again, the giant strangling Leon and getting ready to end the game a few hours in. He stops though when he sees his eyes turn red, commenting that they share the same blood now. Despite letting Leon go though, he warns he'll still kill him if he continues to be a problem. After the chapter break, Leon refuses to learn his lesson and follows
The big cheese.
who then proceeds to seriously mollywop my boy before just getting ready to end everything and crush him under his boot. Thankfully, he's saved by a mysterious lady in red shooting through the window, distracting the chief who dives out of the window after her. Who could this be, I wonder? After exploring the house and killing a man just trying to take a piss, it's time to head to the church. First cutting through the village to slaughter more of its residents before using the key he found in the chief's house to enter the sealed pathway. Once at the church, it's unfortunately sealed, and instead of climbing through a broken window or something, Leon must go find the insignia that unlocks it. Heading toward the nearby lake, he finds another note to the villagers explaining the precautions behind locking the church, that Luis stole something important from them, and something called the Lago is blocking the way to the key to the church. After walking through an unusually large area that is in no way a boss arena, and dodging another boulder, Leon makes it to the lake and finds our old friend, Police Officer Number 2. Like his partner, he's no longer part of the living. 2 villagers dumping his corpse into the lake, a massive creature swimming up to swallow him. That's no good. Goddamn fish, I hate them. How dare they take away my best bud, police officer number 2. I wish all fish were dead. Whoops. Anyway, lackluster boss battle time. The Del Lago fight just doesn't do it for me. It's not tough, but it's not really all that exciting either. You control Leon on a small boat, getting dragged by Del Lago and avoiding debris. Once you have an opening, you can throw harpoons at him before he submerges and does it all again. The harpoon themselves are pretty slow to throw and can be pretty inaccurate to aim. Maybe if it was flanked by other enemies or you could use your guns on it, it would be more engaging. Or maybe a bigger boat with more guns, like the Ricardo Irving fight in Resident Evil 5. Oh well. After killing that giant salamander thingy, Leon starts feeling seasick from the boat ride and passes out as the chapter ends. After having a spooky dream, Leon wakes up several hours later, briefly checking in with Hunnigan again before proceeding his mission. In the nearby bed, someone's left him a letter, pointing him toward the direction of a waterfall that holds the insignia to enter the church. The letter also warns that the bad guys have deployed El Gigante against him. Sounds like we got another boss battle coming soon. Stepping outside, things have gotten genuinely creepy as it's now dark out and raining. Heading towards the waterfall, Leon is greeted by a friendly local. Hello, sir. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Dónde es el waterfall? Oh, well shit. A new mechanic is introduced now as Los Ganados, the zombie name given to the villagers, now have the possibility for their heads to burst and the Las Plagas infecting them popping out. Encounters now require a decent amount of crowd control as the Las Plagas have some decent range and do a lot of damage. So it's important to put them down fast, or at least keep your distance while taking out other mobs. The game is a bit merciful though, as throwing a flash grenade is a quick way to one-shot any Las Plagas in range, so you don't have to waste too many bullets if you can't nail headshots. After rerouting a river and getting past the waterfall, Leon finds the insignia he needs. Grabbing a boat back to the main area. Heading into that conveniently large area from before, he spots the locals dragging, or trying to drag anyways, something from behind these massive doors. It's this giant creature, Gigante if you will, who proceeds to smush all the puny humans around him before kicking off another boss battle. Now this is a much more satisfying boss fight. El Gigante is massive, does a ton of damage, and soaks up a lot too. Despite his big lumbering size, he can charge at Leon for huge damage if he doesn't dodge, pick him up in his hands to squeeze him, and just straight up step on him. How the hell can we beat something like this? Wait, what's that sound? Well, I'll be damned. It's that doggo we helped way back at the beginning. He hops into the fight to assist, distracting El Gigante to let Leon get some free shots. I have to say, I love that the game rewards your random act of kindness by giving you some help in this fight. Nothing hints he'll reappear, and you're not penalized either for ignoring him. Also, apparently this dog is meant to be a dog named Huey from the game Haunting Ground, which, while I heard is good, I've never played myself. Back to the boss battle. After doing a decent amount of damage, El Gigante will double over in pain, an absolutely massive Las Plagas bursting out of his back. His weak spot exposed, you can either shoot at it, or preferably just hop on his back and stab it several times. After enough damage, it'll slip back inside him, and you'll have to damage him a decent amount before it pops up again. At this point, El Gigante will also start ignoring your doggo pal, and focus only on Leon. After emptying pretty much every piece of ammo I have into him, the bastard finally goes down. The fight finished, I say goodbye to my doggo pal and head back to the church, and run into some new doggos, who are not as friendly. Honestly, as an enemy, they're pretty disappointing, as I was expecting to run into packs of them or work together with their human masters, but they're used sparingly throughout the game. Too bad. Finally getting into the church, I'm wowed by how small it is. I don't know, it didn't exactly look massive from outside, but it seems pretty basic for a church run by a cult of weirdos. Then again, they are in the Spanish countryside, so it's not like they can build something extravagant. After playing around with the church's lights, which is probably the hardest puzzle in the game, which isn't really saying much, Leon finally finds Ashley.
Ashley!
Don't come!
Hey! Take it easy.
No! Get away!
Calm down. Everything's going to be just fine. My name's Leon. I'm under the President's order to rescue you.
What? My father?
That's right. And I have to get you out of here. Now come with me.
Who weirdly isn't tied up or being watched by armed guards. Yeah, I know no one could get into the church, but why not take more precautions, especially since Leon has slaughtered dozens of their members at this point. Whatevs. After the cutscene and Leon calling in for a rescue chopper, we get a brief file explaining how Ashley's gameplay works. Essentially, when she's with Leon, he can have her wait in place, hide in certain objects, or assist in puzzles. However, if Ashley gets grabbed by an enemy and they escape the area, or if Ashley dies, it's game over. More or less an escort quest with extra steps. Personally, I don't think Ashley is as bad as other escort missions, as her AI is smart enough to dodge when Leon is pointing his gun in her direction, so you don't always accidentally kill her, but certain segments later on make it brutal to try and protect her while fighting mobs. But more on that later. After doing some due diligence and making sure Ashley isn't hurt anywhere...
Ow! You pervert!
Their escape attempt is cut off by this Palpatine knockoff, the leader of Los Illuminados, Osmond Sadler. He then proceeds to monologue his entire plan to Leon, explaining they infected Ashley with Las Plagas, planning to send her back to the US to infect her father as well, and naturally taking over the US, and eventually the world. Now this was an extremely stupid thing to reveal, as if he had let Leon escape at this point, his master plan would have gone off without a hitch. But you can't have a bad guy who doesn't undermine his own plans, right? After that little talk, the pair action movie their way out of a window and leave the church heading towards the extraction point. Clearing out the graveyard of Ganados, the pair make it back to the village once again, their darkness and rain making it a lot more terrifying. More so because there are plenty of bear traps around, enemies are hidden pretty well, and it's stupidly easy for Ashley to get nabbed or killed if you're not careful.
Oh, no.
Clearing the village for the third time, the pair return to the farm. This part a lot easier as you can have Ashley hide right at the beginning and clear out the Ganados first. You'll also find another note here, one explaining that Luis stole something important from the cult, was infected himself at some point, but also cured himself of his infection. He's still in hiding, and the note speculates that the mysterious third party might be helping him. Well, that explains why he was tied up, and also why they haven't outright killed him yet. Now that Ashley is with Leon, the pair can unlock a door that you couldn't get through earlier. Crossing a rickety bridge, they are immediately surrounded on all sides by another mob of Ganados.
What are we gonna do, Leon?
Hate to say it, but we're sandwiched all right. Quick, in that cabin!
The two take cover inside a convenient cabin, running into our old friend Luis.
I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics too.
How rude! And And I don't believe there's any relevance with my figure and my standing. Who are you?
Oh, excuse me, Your Highness.
After some playful banter, the crowd of Ganado descend on the cabin, attempting to break in.
Okay, it's game time.
I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with this next part. On the one part, you can briefly board up the windows, Ashley is hidden so you don't have to protect her, and Luis will assist you and give you ammo. On the other hand, the cabin is small, the mob will break through pretty fast, come at you from 3 different directions, and have some Las Plagas mixed in with them, making the encounter a lot more annoying. As the fight continues, they'll start breaking in from the top floor as well, and honestly, it feels like it goes on way longer than it has to. Eventually, the Ganados give up, with Luis saying he forgot something before leaving. Pretty suspicious there. Leaving the cabin, you find another note that explains the Ganados have set up ambushes on the 2 paths you can choose to proceed through. One has another large group of Ganados. The other has another El Gigante. I pretty much always take the path with the Ganados as the fight with the El Gigante is brutal. It's in a tiny clearing with little movement, you have Ashley with you who can be killed easily, and the gimmick of trying to drop a rock on him is a bit iffy. The other path is slightly better, but requires playing smart. You can have Ashley hide again so you won't have to worry about guarding her, and the Ganados here aren't anything special compared to what we've seen before. Until this part anyways. These are the Bella sisters, the female counterparts to the chainsaw-wielding Dr. Salvador. Like him, they're fast, can one-shot you, and you'll have to kill them in order to proceed. Thankfully, they're pretty easy to trap. I clear the Ganados around them first, and then just trap them down below, throwing grenades and taking pot shots at them. After that's done, Leon and Ashley make it to the gate out of the village, which is of course locked,
The big cheese.
being the only one able to unlock it. Taking a very dangerous ski lift down to the side area, Leon enters a barn alone in search of Mendez. Despite being a giant, he somehow manages to pull a Batman and pop up behind Leon, knocking him flat on his ass and locking them inside the barn. After another QTE and setting him on fire, transforms into a weird man centipede thing, kicking off a boss battle. The fight starts off with him just lumbering towards you, his exposed spine a massive target. He can however pull you towards him if he gets close enough and swipe at you with his tentacles for a ton of damage. Moving around the ground floor, you can try your luck and shoot a red barrel for extra damage, or climb to the second floor to give you some distance, though he'll just stretch up and attack you there too. Once he takes enough damage, he separates in 2, his upper body now moving a lot faster and being harder to hit. My recommendation is to climb onto the second floor and let him come to you, aiming for his tentacles to knock him down. Overall, I think it's a tough but solid fight, and I like that it changes halfway through after you've split him in half. Once he's finished off, his fake eye will conveniently pop out of his head, letting Leon and Ashley return to the village gate and finally leave. Of course, there are still villagers ahead guarding the path, but they're quick to take out with some gunfire and vehicular manslaughter. More villagers will give chase, and the 2 will have to cross a drop bridge and into a castle, starting the next large segment of the game.
On the other side of the bridge.
Time for some spooky castle adventures. The castle is huge and has a pretty decent variety in look and locations compared to the village, where it started to kind of blend together for me towards the end. Unlike the village, this area is filled with members of the Los Iluminados cult, dressed in robes and some wearing ceremonial masks that can block headshots. Once the chapter starts, I can check in with the merchant for some upgrades, and now have the chance to buy a Magnum. I decide to wait though, as I don't have a lot of room in my inventory, and because I can get one for free later on. Leon and Ashley proceed into the castle's main courtyard, where cult members are waiting with annoying crossbows and flaming catapults? A bit overkill, no? Cue another annoying escort section, as I have to dodge giant fireballs while keeping Ashley safe, and not letting these weirdos grab her while I'm trying to stop the catapult guys. Made more frustrating as there are few areas for cover, so I'll have to leave Ashley out of range to run up and kill cult members shooting arrows. Once all these annoying bastards are dealt with, Leon lifts up a cannon from below and uses it to blow a hole through the locked gate. Probably could have been pretty useful against the catapults, but whatever. He feels hunting it in on their current location, but the signal cuts off before she can help out more. Soon more cult guys show up and introduce a new version of Las Plagas. This one bigger and kinda worm-like, being able to one-shot Leon by biting his head off if he gets too close. After dealing with these bozos and solving a stupidly simple sword puzzle, we run into Luis again. He has some drugs to help Leon and Ashley with their Las Plagas infection. Or did, but his dumbass dropped it somewhere. He decides to leave to go find them, and Leon questions his motives in helping them before he brushes them off and leaves. The scene almost feels kind of pointless, just there to confirm coughing up blood is a sign that the eggs have hatched and are growing, but I don't really think we needed Luis for that. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Mowing down more cult goons, Leon and Ashley re-enter the castle and are greeted by some creepy laughter.
I was starting to wonder when you might notice us.
Introducing Ramon Salazar, the owner of the castle and another one of Sadler's henchmen. He warns the pair to give themselves up, as sooner or later they'll end up joining them anyhow, when Las Plagas takes control. After Leon hits us with this great line,
No thanks, bro.
Salazar blocks the path ahead. Time to go find some treasure that unlocks our path. Again. Taking the side door, we find another note explaining the cult's attempts at capturing Luis again, and that he's stolen some vaccines along with an important Las Plagas sample. The path ahead is blocked by fire-breathing horse statues, which is symbolic? Maybe? There's gotta be a better way to do it. Sure, it looks cool, but it'd be so easy to accidentally burn the whole castle down if you have these on 24/7. In order to get through, Leon has to descend into a prison cell below, introducing us to a new enemy, the Guerrador. Jesus fuck. Well, I don't think this guy is scary exactly, he does give me a ton of anxiety. He's strapped to the wall right next to the lever you have to pull, and bursts out when kicking down the prison door. He's fast and can lop your head off with his Wolverine claws. His weakness is that he's blind, so if you move slowly, you can get around him without drawing attention, getting behind him to shoot the Las Plagas sticking out of him. Admittedly, I could probably just leave him down here and dip out, but I'm Leon motherfucking Kennedy. Making use of the conveniently placed bells in the room, I bet him to attack them, fire off some shots into his back, rinse and repeat, and eventually he's done for. Getting past the Rapidash statues, we move into another huge area, and another huge headache. Right off the bat, you're facing a ton of cult members all at once, some with shields and some firing crossbows. Again, you're guarding Ashley with nowhere for her to hide, and leaving her alone for too long pretty much guarantees one of these bastards will snatch her up. And naturally, the new type of Las Plagas pops up here too, almost guaranteeing it will accidentally kill Ashley if he gets too close. Also, a decent amount of cult members will spawn after the initial batch too. After clearing most of the enemies, you'll be able to turn a crank to drop a bridge that will let you onto the next floor. Unfortunately, the encounter continues, as Leon will have to boost Ashley up in order to reach some cranks that she needs to turn in order for them to leave. Now you'll have to shoot at cult members as they try to grab her while at the same time keeping yourself protected. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this whole section. It seems so much longer than it needs to be and designed to just burn through all your ammo. I kind of feel like a boss battle would have been better. Definitely enough space for it. Once that hell's done with, Ashley starts having some lady troubles, and Leon, being the insensitive jerk that he is, upsets her, causing Ashley to run off and fall into a conveniently placed Scooby-Doo trap. After the frustrating fight just before this, it feels like such a kick in the balls that she ends up captured so easily. Afterwards, Salazar gives Leon a call on his video phone to talk shit, and apparently he didn't know Ashley was captured till Leon brought it up. Whoops. Oh, and he fills us in that we got a sewer level coming up. Yay. Frustrated at having to rescue Ashley again, my merchant compadre offers to let me use his shooting range free of charge. Ah, yes. Shooting all these cardboard cutouts. Man, I'm having a blast. Whee! Haha, die you bastards. Heh. Look, I won these cool little bottle caps. It's a mini-me with a rocket launcher. And, oh, hey Ashley. Maybe I can just quit the mission and give this to your dad instead. He'd probably get a laugh out of it. Heh. Oh yeah, where was I? Rescuing Ashley. Got it. Okay, down the sewers we go. Well, it's less a sewer and more like a wet hallway. I guess this is accurate for a medieval castle. I don't know. Time for a new enemy. This time we got invisible bug things, the Novistadores. Their gimmick is pretty simple. They turn invisible and ambush you, possibly melting your face off if you take too much damage. This whole encounter and area seems so much easier than I remember. Yeah, I was a lot younger and I played like an idiot as a kid, but the sound cues and the Novistadores' squishiness makes them pretty manageable compared to getting swamped by weapon-wielding ganados. While we're down here, we find a memo from Luis where he teaches us about different parasites. Neato. But why would a cop from Madrid know all this stuff? Well, once the pest control is finished and Leon limps through a pendulum of swinging blades, he stumbles upon the cult members in a moment of prayer. I couldn't come up with some clever joke here, so I threw a grenade at them. Hey, I heard you guys were infected with ligma. What's ligma? Ligma balls. Soon after, I find a note written by Salazar. Turns out the Los Illuminados have existed for ages, and his ancestor was the one who put down their cult and limited their power. His ancestor also apparently sealed Las Plagas beneath the castle, with Salazar now a member of Los Illuminados, atoning for his family's actions by submitting to Sadler's will and giving him control of the parasite. Don't join cults, kids. Moving along, we got some more Los Illuminados to fight. This fight isn't too bad. Plenty of places to take cover, not as many enemies, and the only part I'd consider hard is chasing the leader of the group for a bit before he hops into a Gatling gun. I think you might be able to kill him before he gets to the Gatling gun, but my smooth brain no shoot too good. After that engagement, we are reunited with our little bro, Salazar.
What a pleasant surprise. But I'm afraid it's Ashley we need. Not you, Mr. Kennedy.
Leon and Salazar have some back and forth, and we also find out Salazar is the same age as Ashley at 20 years old. Yikes, dude, you look terrible. Try a new face wash or something. And then of course, more cult guys, this time wielding scythes. Oh, and rocket launchers. Mucho fun. After killing all these guys, we get the first piece for that wall Salazar put up hours ago, which I completely forgot about up until now. Now it's Spooky Garden Maze time, with Salazar calling to taunt Leon that he'll never get out and be eaten by his pets. He would be right if the maze wasn't comically small, and that you could use the map to easily get around. It's a short segment and brings back the dogs from the church, but they're still easy to handle. Grabbing another insignia to proceed, Leon reunites with the lady in red, Ada Wong.
Put your hands where I can see them.
Sorry, but following a lady's lead just isn't my style.
Put them up now.
Bit of advice, try using knives next time. Works better for close encounters.
If it wasn't obvious already, Ada was the other person Los Illuminados were tracking. She's been working with Luis, and secretly helping Leon through the game so far. Her mission to get the sample from Luis for her new boss, Albert Wesker, the traitor and bad guy from RE1, and who was revealed to still be alive in Code Veronica. Ada herself showed up as an ally in Resident Evil 2 during Leon's campaign, which is why the two of them know each other so well. Since I don't want to come off as repetitive by saying, "And then I fought another bunch of enemies" over and over again, I'm going to skip ahead to the next story beat.
See you around.
Ada!
Oh hey Luis, what's going on, pal?
I got it.
Now that I have the sample, you serve me no purpose.
Sadler!
My boy Salazar will make sure you follow the same fate.
Stay with me, Louis. I am a researcher, hired by Sadler. He found out what I was up to.
Don't talk.
Here. It should suppress growth of the parasite. The sample. Sadler took it. You have to get it back.
Louis! Louis!
Well, damn it. After Luis is violently penetrated from behind, Leon swears revenge and conveniently ends up finding Ashley down below, shooting her free and keeping her safe for a bit by sniping anyone trying to grab her. We then switch characters and get to control Ashley for a bit. This is probably the closest the game gets to more traditional RE survival horror, as Ashley is completely helpless during this segment, lacking a gun to fight enemies. She'll have to sneak around the Los Illuminados cult members here in order to unlock gates and proceed to another area. You only encounter one member at a time though. They move stupidly slow, and you can find an oil lamp to toss at them to hurt or outright kill them. While wandering around, you'll find a note left by Salazar's butler, lamenting the fact that Sadler took advantage of and manipulated Salazar due to his faith and lack of family, convincing him to remove the seal of Las Plagas, and of course letting himself and others get infected. I don't actually know if the butler does show up anywhere, but I get the suspicion he's supposed to be one of Salazar's 2 guards. After a sliding block puzzle and dodging some QTE suits of armor, Ashley and Leon are finally reunited.
Leon!
Ashley! You did good.
I'm sorry if I was...
Oh, don't worry about it. Come on, let's move on.
Sure hope she never gets captured again. The tender moment is interrupted by Salazar talking crap, and the pair walk over Luis's corpse, without any kind of notice from Ashley. Like, yeah, I know she barely knew the guy, but a quick scene saying, "Oh no, not Luis," probably wouldn't have been too much to ask. I backtracked to an earlier area near the maze to loot the Los Illuminados stash with Ashley's help, picking up the broken butterfly magnum. See? Told you I didn't need to buy one. Next stop, a trip through some lava for some reason. Not much to say about this little detour, honestly. I think the flaming dragon pillars are a cool idea, but if you're good with the rifle and scope, it's stupidly easy. More so since you don't need Ashley here. Grabbing the lion piece from the chest, Leon and Ashley take a conveniently placed tram back to the area where they first met Salazar, finally moving forward. Of course, we're stopped again from proceeding, now needing to get grails in order to unlock the next door. Simple stuff, though we get to fight some moving suits of armor in a kind of gauntlet, each wave possessed by a different variant of Las Plagas. I like that you have to focus on headshots here in order to knock their helmets off and expose the parasites, but disappointingly, the armor enemies don't show up afterwards. Moving along, we run into Salazar again.
I think you've lived long enough. Let's see if you can survive this time.
And he hits us with the old slow-moving, crushing wall trap. That was close. You were almost an Ashley sandwich.
Boo! You stink!
His next trick is a slow-moving drill trap, which some well-placed headshots take care of no problem. Both chalices in hand, we move on to the next big area.
Damn it! Ashley!
Great. More of them.
Where Ashley is immediately kidnapped. Again. Ugh. Left dumbfounded by his incompetence, Leon is stuck fighting a swarm of novistadors that feel like they've taken a bit of a nerf, as they're pretty easy to shoot out of the air and kill with a couple bullets. Stepping outside, we see Salazar's got Ashley now, so naturally we go after him. After all that mess and kicking some double Garrador ass like an absolute Giga Chad, I catch up to Salazar, who proceeds to yet again use another Scooby-Doo trap to drop Leon below. A QTE saving him from being impaled. Salazar gives him a quick call, and Leon delivers yet another banger of a line.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
Say whatever you please. Die, you worm!
Time for another boss battle, and it's a pretty good one. We get to fight the Verdugo, who's a cool mix of a tyrant and a xenomorph. The fight starts off with him in hiding, trying to attack Leon with his tail from either above or below, having to QTE to dodge. At a certain point, he'll finally show himself and attack directly. He hits hard, has a long reach with his tail, is fast, and worst of all, bulletproof. Everything you throw at him will bounce off, but technically you can just outrun and outlast him until the elevator above is ready. Or, if you're a true Chad, you can use the conveniently placed liquid nitrogen to freeze him, and finally do some damage. Once he's soaked up enough bullets, he'll explode violently and drop a rare treasure you can sell. I'd say this is the best fight so far. It's tense, cramped, there isn't really an easy way to counter him, so you do have to run away from him a lot in order to lead him to a liquid nitrogen canister and finally damage him. And you have to do it several times too, so it's not a one and done kind of deal. Grabbing the elevator back up, Leon's now in a mine, and apparently the place where they've been digging up Las Plagas. After blowing up a rock with some dynamite, we got a quick fight against two El Gigantes. Excuse me, I meant one. Compared to the first El Gigante fight, this one is pretty lackluster. Not taking into account I have more weapons and most are upgraded at this point, but the fight becomes monotonous. Shoot until he walks over to you, run away, climb the ladder, and take the zip line back down. Rinse and repeat. I kind of regret burning the first one alive, if only because the fight would have been a bigger challenge. You live and learn. With the second El Gigante down, Leon finds himself in a giant underground cavern filled with our old friends, the Novistadores. Walking through, you'll be swarmed non-stop as you have to press a switch to activate two lasers that bounce off of a mirror and melt the doorway to the next path. Christ, talk about over the top. How do you even build something like this down here? Yeah, I know, Resident Evil logic, but it's still weird. Finally, we're above ground, but somehow still haven't made it back to Salazar. But we find a nice letter left by Ada. She warns us that once Las Plagas hatch, they're tough to remove, and only some kind of surgery can save us. The clock is ticking indeed. Another locked door blocks the path, and Leon heads into some underground ancient ruins for some minecart madness. Come on, get up there. Come on, I'm pressing the button, please. No! Alrighty, I think we're done with all this nonsense now and can finally return to some normalcy. Son of a bitch. Alright, finally we made it back to that little bastard Salazar, and just in time for some Bush-era political commentary.
This is no ritual. It's terrorism.
Isn't that a popular word these days? Not to worry. We've prepared a special ritual for you.
After some knife throwing fun, Leon will have to climb up the tower to chase after Salazar, dodging exploding barrels like it's Donkey Kong or something. Once at the top, Leon is too late to save Ashley, as she's been moved to another island. Salazar decides to stop messing around and finish him for good, being absorbed by the Queen Las Plagas that's up here, along with the other Verdugo, becoming some kind of plant tentacle thingy. Cue a boss fight.
Monsters. Guess after this there'll be one less to worry about.
The fight takes place on the platform Salazar was just standing on, with a bottom level filled with adult Las Plagas. He'll swipe at you with tentacles from either side, and occasionally launch a one-shot attack with his mouth from the center. The goal is to shoot the eye on the mouth tentacle, do enough damage for Salazar to reveal himself, and then empty bullets into him until he hides again. I'm kinda in the middle with this fight. It really isn't that tough if you stay in the center of the arena, but I did have some times where I'd QTE away from a tentacle only for his mouth to scoop me up and kill me instead. So it can be cheap at times. With Salazar dead, Leon reunites with Ada, who gives him a ride to the island where Ashley is being held captive before she dips out again. We're in the final run of the game, and arguably the worst part of it. The creepy locales of the village and castle are subbed out for a frustrating military area, with the enemies here using stun batons, Gatling guns, and are overall a lot more spongier. It kind of feels like they ran out of ideas, wanted to extend the runtime, and gave us this. It's not overwhelmingly terrible exactly, but just so tedious, especially after some of the dumber moments in the castle. After fighting through an army of ganados, you can eventually hear Ashley crying for help. Leon finds her on a video monitor, locked somewhere with two guards. One roughs her up a bit before realizing Leon might be watching on the camera, ordering his buddy to shut off the power and cutting the line. Time to go save Ashley. Or we would, but the door to her cell is locked, so naturally we have to take a detour and come back. But it does introduce us to the most terrifying enemy in the game, the Regenerator. It's brought up in a memo left by Luis near a room where you first encounter it. He talks about the horrible experiments that created El Gigante and the Novistadores, and how the Regenerator tops both of them. A creature that can heal from just about anything, the only way to kill it being to destroy the leech-like plagas inside of it. Only problem is you need thermal imaging to see and kill them. Picking up the nearby freezer key, the first Regenerator appears, and Jesus, I hate this guy. He's terrifying to look at, and his breathing sounds are just nerve-wracking. As mentioned by Luis, this thing is tough to slow down. Even blowing one of its legs off, it still managed to leap up and attack. Running away from this guy since I can't fight back yet, I round the corner smack dab into another one of these assholes. Again, I run and make it to the freezer, where of course there's a few of these bastards just hanging from the ceiling, just waiting to jump scare me. Turning down the temperature, I finally get my hands on the thermoscope, just in time for one of these bastards to wake up. Despite being able to kill it pretty fast, it's always tense fighting these guys, especially the upgraded versions, the Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden being able to grab you and impale you on itself, and also having an extra plaga on its back, making it harder to kill. After some more Ganado shenanigans, and some crane game fun, finally Ashley is rescued once more. Surely there's absolutely no way she'll be kidnapped again, right? Right?
Come on, let's get out of here.
After plowing through some more Ganados, fighting some Regenerators in the waste dump, and finally a slow-moving truck chase, we finally run into Sadler.
I can feel them growing ever so strongly inside you.
He does some gloating before using the force to start crushing Leon's insides. And then taking control of Ashley, commanding her to come to his side, and kidnapping her. Again. Ugh. While Leon composes himself and is back on Sadler's trail, we cut to a scene of Ada talking to a new character, a scar-faced army guy. His name is Krauser, and he's the one responsible for Ashley getting kidnapped. The both of them are working for Wesker, who's after the Las Plagas sample in Sadler's possession, the old man having already figured out Krauser was a mole in his organization. Hey, will you look at that? Another super wide open area. Sure hope we don't have another boss battle coming up. Oh, it's just a QTE knife fight instead. Yippee! I actually like this whole knife fight between Leon and Krauser. I just think it should have been a cutscene instead of throwing in a QTE. It's hard to enjoy their fight and pay attention to what they're saying when you're focused on watching for the next button prompt. During their little tussle, we learn that the two of them actually know each other. Krauser seemingly having died 2 years ago on a mission. He reveals to Leon that he was the one who kidnapped Ashley, and that of course he's working for Umbrella. Or more specifically Wesker. Honestly, why I like Krauser, his relationship and rivalry with Leon doesn't really do it for me. I think the problem is that we never met the guy until this point. His history doesn't matter since we're hearing it all for the first time. Granted, Darkside Chronicles tries to fix this later on, but in story, it could have worked better if maybe the two flew into Spain together, with Krauser seemingly dying along with those two cops from the beginning. It's not much, but it adds some kind of weight to it.
Ada! Well, if it isn't the bitch in the red dress.
Looks like we have the upper hand here.
You may be able to prolong your life, but it's not like you can escape your inevitable death, is it?
After the fight's done and Ada scares Krauser off, Old Man Sadler gives us a call to talk shit and set up the next boss fight, vaguely saying that he's sending it to come and get you. Thankfully, you don't have to fight more Ganados here. Instead, you're fighting the laser hallway from the Resident Evil movie. And Leon just kinda goofs off for a little bit. Heading down below, we spot some kind of weird container hanging over a bottomless pit for some reason, before being ambushed by it, kicking off another boss battle. It, or U5 as it's actually called, is some kind of weird human scorpion centaur thing. The fight is split into two segments, the first taking place in the hanging container. The goal is to escape the container as its segments start to drop, unlocking or shooting doors in order to proceed, dodging and fighting off the boss the whole time. It's a bit frustrating as the claustrophobic container combined with Leon's tank controls make it a pain to move around, find those switches, and then move on before the time limit is up. Getting out of the container, the proper boss fight begins. The fight is pretty simple. U5 will chase you around the arena, swiping at you and attacking with its Las Plagas pincer thing. After a certain amount of damage, he'll dig underground, and then you'll have to QTE to avoid his attacks from below. With the arsenal you'll have at this point, just unload everything you have, and he's barely a challenge. Finally making it back to the surface, Leon confronts Krauser, who puts on his war paint and is ready to take his old buddy down. It's another boss battle, but it's probably the best one in the whole game. It's structured like one huge arena, Leon having to find the 3 insignias that unlock the door to the next area. 2 are separated on opposite sides of the field, and Krauser himself is holding the last one. Slowly moving through the area, you'll have to dodge Krauser's attacks, and once you grab the first insignia, you'll get locked into a mini fight with him.
What do you intend to do restoring Umbrella?
To bring order and balance to this insane world of ours.
A psycho like you can't bring order or balance.
You don't seriously think a conservative mind can chart a new course for the world, do you?
He'll start the fight by shooting you from above with his machine gun, having to take cover behind some stone blocks to avoid damage. After taking a few shots at him, he'll jump to the bottom, trying to get up close for some knife strikes, backflipping to keep his distance, and again unloading with his machine gun. Once you do enough damage, he'll start to spam grenades that you can QT dodge out of the way from. And finally, once enough damage is done, he'll toss a flash grenade and dip out, finally giving you the chance to leave the area. The next area of the ruins has Krauser setting up drones and tiny robots to attack Leon. They're pretty easy to take out, but with their awkward placement and how fast the little robots can chase Leon, it's hard to move through the area without taking some damage from them. After that little detour, you'll find the second insignia and be confronted by Krauser again.
2 down, 1 more to go, Krauser.
We'll see about that. Witness the power!
You've lost it completely, Krauser.
Prepare for your death, Leon.
This time he ditches the gun and transforms his arm into a huge organic blade, starting the true boss fight. This fight is brutal, and I'd say the hardest boss battle in the game for several reasons. First, Krauser is fast, dodging bullets easily and instantly catching up to Leon if you try to put some distance between them. Next, his arm blade doubles as a shield, letting him protect most of his body when you do manage to shoot him. Finally, and probably the biggest problem, is that the fight is on a timer, Krauser having rigged explosives to blow up the area in 3 minutes. Mercifully, there is a way to make the fight a lot easier, and that's your trusty knife. For whatever reason, Krauser takes tons of damage from it, so my strategy was to either stun him by shooting his legs, or bait him into using certain attacks, then running up and taking swipes at him, sometimes getting lucky and stunning him so I can knife him even more. Once he's dead though, the timer doesn't stop, so you'll have to grab the insignia and run for your life to the exit to escape in time. After the chapter break, Sadler will call again. Less than heartbroken about Krauser's death, having never trusted the guy in the first place. After the call, we see that Sadler's last line of defense is a huge amount of Ganado soldiers, who are absolutely strapped. And honestly, I just can't anymore. I just want to be done with these assholes. Wait, what's that sound?
Thanks. When we get out of here, drinks are on me.
Yeah, hey, I know a good bar.
Mike!
I'll make sure you're the next to go, Sadler.
After Mike's badassery and sacrifice, Leon gets a little too handsy with Ada, earning him a knife to the leg and a kick to the gut. The parasite is fully hatched now. Time's running out before Leon's completely under Sadler's control.
Sorry, Ada.
After another tired Ganados fight, Leon finds Ashley in some kind of stasis tube thing. Sadler pops up behind him and sends Leon flying with this epic palm thrust. Just as he's about to use the force on Leon again, Ada saves the day by emptying tons of bullets into Sadler. This gives Leon enough time to free Ashley and flee, Ada blocking up the exit so Sadler can't follow them. Taking her through one last encounter with Ganados, Leon finds the machine that can zap the plagas out of his and Ashley's bodies. Awfully convenient. Great thing Sadler didn't decide to just blow this up just in case. With the parasites now removed, Leon gets stocked up one last time and ascends the elevator platform to take down Sadler once and for all.
Ada!
Better try a new trick, cause that one's getting old. You okay?
I've been better.
What's so funny?
Oh, I think you know. The American prevailing is a cliché that only happens in your Hollywood movies. Oh, Mr. Kennedy, you entertain me. To show my appreciation, I will help you awaken from your world of clichés.
Ada, stand back.
Transforming, Sadler engages us in battle, and it's pretty disappointing. Honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect with this transformation the first time I saw it, but I wasn't expecting some weird spider tentacle thing. Compared to his minions, it feels a bit lackluster in terms of design. The fight itself isn't all that spectacular either. His new body is bulletproof, only being able to damage him on the eyes on his legs. Once you shoot them, the main large eye in his skull will open up, letting you either shoot it or just knife him. The platform you're fighting him on is huge, making it easy to outmaneuver him and keep your distance, though he'll occasionally leap towards you when you cross the bridge over to the other side of the platform. But for the most part, the fight stays the same from beginning to end. It doesn't really change and doesn't really require any kind of different strategy. At most, sometimes he'll swipe some debris at you, but that's it. Once you do enough damage, Ada will toss you a rocket launcher to finish off Sadler. The threat of Los Illuminados finally taken care of, Ada swipes the Plaga sample from Leon, leaping onto a helicopter to escape. But not before setting off a time bomb on the island, something I didn't know was a series tradition the first time I played. She's not heartless though, as Ada tosses him keys to a jet ski. Legging it, Leon regroups with Ashley, and the pair jet ski to safety as the island blows up.
Come on. Let's go home.
Sounds like a great idea. Mission accomplished. Right, Leon?
Not quite. I still have to get you home safe.
So, after you take me back to my place, how about we do some, overtime?
Sorry.
After Leon denies Ashley's offer for some overtime, the pair drive off into the sunrise. The nightmare finally over. And that's the main story of Resident Evil 4. You can now replay the game in a sort of New Game Plus, carrying over items and money from your previous playthrough, along with unlocking some costumes. After beating the game, you also unlock a few things. First is the minigame The Mercenaries. It's an arcade-type shooting segment where you gun down enemies for points within a given time limit, able to extend the time by nailing combos and finding items. Next is Assignment Ada, a minigame where you control Ada as she collects Plaga samples for Wesker. Next is Separate Ways, a side story featuring Ada, explaining what she did during the main campaign while away from Leon. It's pretty beefy at 5 chapters and explains more of the story, Ada's true motives, and Wesker's plan. While I'd like to talk about it, this video is pretty long as it is, so maybe I'll save that for another day. So is Resident Evil 4 still good? Absolutely. While not every Resident Evil fan will agree whether it was a good thing, it shook up the formula and design of the games to make it more approachable to a new audience. The new over-the-shoulder third-person camera made it much easier to move and see, revolutionizing the genre, with tons of games mirroring its style. While it ditched most of the survival horror elements, it made up for it with solid shooting and gameplay, larger and more varied areas that rewarded exploration, and a decent enemy variety that pushed you to use different weapons for different situations. The story, while cliched, isn't really all that different from your regular RE story, as most come off as your usual B-movie plot. Unlike the games that preceded it though, it knows its story is dumb, but has fun with it, taking a few shots here and there at itself throughout the game. As much fun as I had revisiting the game though, it isn't without its problems. Despite the new camera angle opening up gameplay, Leon still controls like a tank, feeling stiff and slow when engaging enemies. And as much as I enjoy the shooting, having to open up the inventory to swap weapons really slows down fights, as opposed to modern RE where you can put a shortcut to instantly swap between weapons. Also, the game really drags in certain parts. While my overall playthrough was about 13 hours, I can't help but think it could have been trimmed down another 5 hours. Certain sections like the castle, and especially the island, throw tons of ganados at you over and over again. While the encounters never really feel impossible, it just gets so tedious and ends up blending together, sometimes overshadowing great encounters like the Verdugo Fight. While I like the story for what it is, and think most of the characters are great, Leon especially as he becomes this over-the-top badass government agent, others like Ashley feel like a missed opportunity. I get that she's a civilian and the designated damsel in distress, and it's a little unrealistic to think she'll be gunning enemies down alongside Leon, but maybe if we got some more characterization from her outside of being the president's daughter, she wouldn't get so much hate. Maybe she's into art or has trouble making friends due to being the president's daughter, or maybe she served an extra gameplay purpose outside of being an annoying escort, like if she could combine herbs to give you an attack or defense buff, or maybe like Ellie and Atreus, she can assist in certain fights in some way. Not mind-blowing stuff, but hey, it's something. Smaller criticisms I have are things like the graphics, that, while great for the time, haven't really held up all that well, especially in the HD versions. Puzzles in the game are pretty brain dead aside from a few exceptions, as most just have you find an item and place it somewhere else. And finally, the QTEs. While I don't think they reach their peak of excessiveness like in RE6, they can still interrupt the flow of the game, especially when they pop up during boss fights where one missed prompt could cause an instant death. Praise and criticisms aside, does Resident Evil 4 even need a remake? I'll be honest, I'm somewhere in the middle with this debate. Before replaying it for this video, I was leaning hard on the no side, but issues with controls, pacing, and some gameplay segments made me think it could use some updating. But after having played Village now, I kind of wonder if there's even a point. Village almost feels like a remake of RE4 on its own, but with RE7's playstyle. The games are so similar, I can't help but think a remake would be criticized for being too similar to Village, even if it's with a different playable character and story. Honestly, a remake of Code Veronica would probably be better use of time and resources, or Outbreak for that matter. To sum up the video, Resident Evil 4 was, and still is, an absolutely amazing game that modernized the series, revolutionized the genre, and inspired countless other games. Its fast gameplay and cheesy story always makes it a great time to replay, and while it's lost most of its survival horror elements, it still has its moments of dread and horror. Having played the whole series now, and the remakes of the original trilogy, I wouldn't consider it the best in the series anymore, but still near the top. It manages to find the right balance of old and new in the more action-focused era of Resident Evil games. So if you're not ready to jump into the more traditional survival horror of Resident Evil, give this game a try. And if you're like me and end up liking it, maybe it'll inspire you to see what else the series has to offer. And that's the video. Thanks for watching, guys. Sorry about the long break from my usual video content. Since I wasn't able to make what I wanted in March, I kind of fell into a slump idea-wise. While I did the daily uploads as a way to have content out and give my brain time to recharge and come up with something new, it ended up just distracting me even more from making a proper new video. I'll probably go back to the Nuzlocke eventually, but for now, I want to focus on my next video after this one. I'm going to transition into a more critique/analysis style of video as opposed to a review, so videos will probably end up longer, but the start of the videos will trim the fat of obvious facts and information. I'm hoping to have a video out every 2 weeks like I used to when I started the channel, but that will come down to the games to play and the free time I have. Again, thanks for watching the video and your patience while I worked on getting this one out. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a like, and comment down below about what you think of the game. Is it your favorite in the series, or do you blame it for the series ditching its horror roots for a while? And if you're new to the channel, or came from the Shorts algorithm, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. I'm FuzzySlippers, and I'll see you later. Peace.